defending the free market, and making the moral case for capitalism. The Justin Moore Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Justin Moore Show. I have a very special show for you guys today. I have a guest on the show. Joining me today is Doug Casey. Doug Casey is a legend in the resource investing world, and he's the founder of Casey Research, and he's the author of several books, including his #1 New York Times bestseller, Crisis Investing. And Doug is here to discuss today his new fiction book that just came out, and it's called Speculator. Doug Casey, welcome to the Justin Moore Show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Justin. Thank you.
Okay, now, Doug, before we jump in and talk about your book, I just really want to get your take on, the economy. What's your feeling with what's going on right now? Here we have, Deutsche Bank, Germany's largest bank. That's on the verge of bankruptcy. We have negative interest rates all around the world. Are we on the verge of collapse?
Well, I think the inevitable is now close to being imminent. The way I put it is this, that we entered a gigantic financial hurricane in 2007, and it was very, very nasty in 2008 and 2009, you'll recall. Mm-hmm. Since then, we've been in the eye of the storm. It's been a gigantic storm. It's a big eye, but we're going into the trailing edge of the hurricane, and it's going to be much worse, much different, and much longer lasting than what we had in 2008 and 9. So hold on to your hat, because it's not just going to be economic. It's going to be social. It's going to be political. It's going to be, I think, military as well. So this is going to be certainly the worst thing since the Great Depression. This could be the worst thing since the start of the Industrial Revolution. This is very serious.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so amazing, gold and silver, they are the best performing assets of this year, but I guess since, I think around August, they've really kind of pulled back. They're trading sideways, and they're kind of pulled back a little bit. But with all the craziness out there, why hasn't gold and silver gone up even more? Are they undervalued at current levels, or what's your take on gold and silver?
Well, it's all relative. You'll recall back in 2001, silver was $4.50. Gold was about $255 or $60, something like that. And at those levels, that was 15 years ago, gold and silver were both cheaper in real terms than they were in 1971 when the dollar was first devalued. So what's happened since then? Gold has gone up about 5 times in that period of time. So it's not a giveaway bargain anymore. But on the other hand, this world situation is much, much more serious now than it was then. So I think that over the course of this cycle, we're going to see gold at least double, maybe more. So I'm very happy owning gold and trying to buy more whenever I get some spare cash.
Okay. All right, Doug. So now I want to switch over to your new novel that's called Speculator. This is the first novel you have written. All of your previous books are from nonfiction books on investing, economics, philosophy, and so forth. So I guess why did you decide to venture into the world of fiction?
Well, because there are a lot of things you can say in fiction that you cannot or perhaps should not say in nonfiction. So it gives you a much bigger canvas to paint on. That's number one, most important thing. Number two is a lot of people like to read fiction, don't like to read nonfiction. People like a story that shows what's happening as opposed to just being told what's happening. So that's the second reason. It's a different market. And I think Ayn Rand proved that with Atlas Shrugged. She wrote some excellent nonfiction books, but the one that got all the sales was Atlas Shrugged, the Fountainhead novels. So that's what I'm trying to do. And what I'm also trying to do in this book, Speculator, is basically compress a lot of what I've learned, or a lot of the important things that I've learned about gold, silver, and the mining stock market in a palatable, page-turning form. So I think those are all good reasons for doing fiction. If I wrote another nonfiction book, I'd be repeating myself, but that's not the case here with this book.
Okay, so I guess for the listener out there who hasn't picked up a copy of this book yet, very briefly, what would you say this book is about?
It's about how our excuse me, God, I'm sounding like Hillary Clinton. It tells of how our hero, who's a 23-year-old guy of all things from Montana, gets lucky in a mining stock. He puts $10,000, which is most of the money he has in the world, into the stock. It goes to $1 million, 100 to 1 shot, which these little mining exploration stocks are very capable of doing. It happens quite often.
And you've done it, right?
Oh yeah, better than that, actually.
So
it happens. It's the law of large numbers. You get into enough of the situations and you choose them carefully enough. When a bull market occurs, all these stocks as a group go up 10 to 1, and the better performers go up 100 to 1. And I've actually been in a couple stocks that did 100 to 1 shot, did 1,000 to 1 shots. It's pretty unbelievable, but it's true.
Wow.
So nobody buys at the bottom and sells at the top, but you can get lucky. So in any event, it tells how our hero, Charles Knight, who's from Montana, 23 years old, he gets lucky on a mining stock. He turns it into $1 million. If this is enough money, I've got to go and check out what the company's really doing in Africa. So he flies to Africa, gets a tour of the property, and through a series of circumstances, starts figuring out that there's something rotten here. And that's how he turns his $1 million, which he's just trying to save, he turns it into a couple $100 million. Because one of the reasons this book is called Speculator is one of the best speculative techniques. It is short-selling frauds. In other words, you can buy a stock and get lucky, maybe, but you can have the best people and a fantastic property, and still it can go nowhere for all kinds of reasons. However, if you get a company that's been hyped to the moon, it has bad people and an overrated property, it's absolutely guaranteed that stock is going to go to zero eventually. And so you can make much more money on the downside than you can on the upside. And a lot of people don't realize that. So the book is about speculative techniques in the market, but it's about more than that. It's about it's a morality tale about what's right and what's wrong, and ethics. It's a story about a bush war in Africa, because I've spent a lot of time in Africa, and my co-author, John Hunt, MD, has also spent a lot of time there. So we put our heads together. We've got a lot of boots-on-the-ground anecdotes about Africa.
Okay, with the book titled Speculator, and I know, Doug, you call yourself a speculator as opposed to an investor.
Yes.
And so for the audience out there, what's the difference between the two?
Well, an investor is somebody that allocates capital to make the capital grow. In other words, an investor might buy a field and buy some seeds, bring in a crop, and by creating real wealth. That's what an investor does, is tries to allocate capital to create more wealth. The reason speculators don't have such a good reputation is that that's not their intention. The intention of the speculator is to take advantage of politically caused distortions in the marketplace where things get way overvalued or are way undervalued, usually for political reasons. If we lived in a free market society, speculators would basically be out of work because there wouldn't be any distortions for them to capitalize on. So that's the main difference between them, and that's why a lot of people don't like speculators, because speculators move into the scene when there are problems, often when there are catastrophes or disasters, because that's where you can buy things that are cheap also, which makes them look predatory, but actually they're not. They're doing a favor to the people that want to sell and giving them a bid when they need a bid. It may be a low bid, but better something than nothing. So this novel, Justin, is the first of a series of 6, reforming the reputations of 6 unjustly besmirched occupations. So Charles advances in the next book, which is called Drug Lord, showing how that business works. In the next book, he becomes an assassin, but he's a good guy, an ethical guy, and we explain how that can be the case if you engage in these occupations that nobody likes.
Yeah, Doug, I've followed you for years now, and I just kind of like how you can take things and it just gives you a different perspective on it. Like, I would have never thought like an assassin could be a good guy, but it's, leave it up to Doug Casey and he'll tell you how.
Well,
so I absolutely love that.
He'll be lovable even when he's accused of being a terrorist, and when he actually becomes a warlord. He's a very good warlord. So kind of guy that you'd want on your side. So this is just the start of Charles's history, and I think it's a great book for people. Well, it's a great book for anybody of any age because it's. Right. I think it's very well written, if I do say so myself, and it has a lot of knowledge of a lot of things in there that you don't usually find. But it's especially a good book for somebody who's at a change of life stage of life, where perhaps somebody's graduating from high school wondering, should I go to college? Or I'm going to college wondering, should I get a job? What kind of a job? Among other things, this book goes into a theory of education, part of which our hero is a high school dropout, but he's not uneducated. He's self-educated, which is much better. And I urge people that are thinking of going to college or are in college not to do it, because you're spending a lot of time and a lot of money, maybe taking on a huge amount of debt, to have your head filled with a lot of ridiculous politically correct ideas. It's a misallocation of time at best, a waste of time, or worse for most people. So that's one of the points that we try to make in the book.
Yeah, and I give the exact same advice on my show about college, just a waste of money, and it's basically an extension of high school nowadays. And I also like in the book what you did, it's not just a great story, but it also has fantastic information teaching you, even for people who say want to, think about investing in gold mines. You talk about what makes a good investment, like, the 9 Ps. And actually you bring up this comment, this is right from your book, where you say people, property, and politics, the 3 most important of the 9 Ps. So I guess you were kind of getting to this earlier, but why do you say those are the 3 most important?
Well, because the most important thing, really more important than everything else put together, are the people that are running the company. Because good people can take an absolute nothing and turn it into a billion-dollar company, and bad people can take a great property and a lot of money and run it into the ground and make it worth 0. So people are by far the most important thing, and I think people should get to know the people, investors should get to know the people behind companies before they put any money in. Small companies like I'm talking about. There are about 2,000 of these small mining companies. So people's number 1, property's number 2. Helps to know some geology, to know some mining engineering, so you can assess whether the hole in the ground is going to be economic or just a waste of money. You have to be able to size up the mineralogy and so forth. And a third thing, increasingly, unfortunately, in today's world, is politics, because one of the reasons why mining is such a terrible industry and why Warren Buffett wouldn't put a nickel into it, wisely I've got to say, as an investment, is because it's a fixed asset. You've got to spend millions exploring, and maybe, just maybe, a long shot, you'll find a deposit, and maybe, just maybe, it's economic. That'll cost you millions more proving that up. And then to put it into production might cost you $1 billion or billions. And this is all in an immovable asset, and the government, whether it's the U.S. government or an African government, see it as a milk cow because you can't move it. There's nothing you can do about it. So the politics are increasingly important. It's not like it was 100 or 150 years ago where you say, hey, it's like a gold mine, and that was a good thing. Today, if it's like a gold mine, you're probably looking at a liability, not an asset. So those are three of the things you look for, but there's six others that you should look at. And, of course, this is something Charles learns in the process of his having an adventure in the jungle in Africa.
Yeah. Now, Doug, you've lived all over the world. You know, you lived in several different countries. And I read this quote in the book, and I want to just tell me how much truth is in this statement. I'm guessing this is. Let me just read it here, and I don't want to get your response. One of Charles' best-traveled friends used State Department advisories as a tip-off on where to go, as opposed to not go. They told you where security was on red alert, so a place thought of to be dangerous was actually safe. Is that how you travel?
Absolutely. You know, Americans especially are such scared little kitties. I went to a conference in Turkey a few weeks ago, and of course, Turkey got on the State Department's watch list, and all the news is saying, oh, there was just a coup there, and, you know, very dangerous, and then there was that bombing in Istanbul airport and so forth. So there was supposed to be 150 people at this conference, half of them Americans, and almost all the Americans didn't show up. I was one of the few Americans there, and I was just disgusted at what scared kitties Americans are. What they should do, it was a wonderful place to be. It was safe, it was mellow, it was friendly. But people listen to what they hear on the news, and they actually pay attention to what these morons at the State Department tell you. No, I prefer going to places on the State Department's watch list because there'll be less people in the restaurants. Therefore, the service will be better. There won't be crowds around monuments that you want to see. I mean, I went to Israel 10 years ago during the Second Intifada, and it was wonderful. I'd never been to Masada before. We went there, and we were there with about 4 other people. If we'd gone there when there wasn't an intifada, it was perfectly safe because the Israelis were absolutely on full alert. If we'd gone there otherwise, we would have been waiting 3-hour lines to see it. So many advantages.
Yeah, I know, especially from a guy like me living in Montana. I don't really care for crowds all that much, so I might have to try that out. Okay, now I also want to get your opinion on this quote from the book. Someone I respect said Africa is the best place left in the world for a young guy like me to get rich.
Absolutely true. Instead of misallocating or probably wasting 4 years of time and a whole lot of money going to college, somebody getting out of high school should do a little bit of research and get on a plane to someplace in Africa. There's almost 50 countries south of the Sahara that you can investigate, and you go there and you'll find that you're on an ideal playing field for a speculator. In other words, an uneven playing field, one that's tilted in one direction, tilted in your direction, because here in the U.S. or Canada or any advanced Western country, there's millions of people in exactly the same position you are. Same education, same background, same mode of thought, same connections, the same amount of money. So you have no advantage. You're competing against millions of other people like yourself. However, if you go to a place like Africa, which I think over the next generation is going to be the place to make money for lots of different reasons, you're the only guy in town that's got those things. And you've got a huge advantage against anybody else there. And you can meet anybody else in that country, which is not true here. And it's easy. So, it's just amazing to me how unimaginative most people are. And I hope anybody that reads this book, and I don't care if you're 30 or 40 years old, you can do this either 50, it doesn't matter. It'll give you the ideas of how you do these things. And anybody can do what Charles Knight does. It's not easy. You have to have some luck. But that's what you should be doing instead of, grinding out a job in a cubicle.
Right. Yeah, Doug, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I always enjoy your insights and that you've gained through the years and your travel and all that. And the book is absolutely fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys need to get out there. You need to get a copy of this book called Speculator by Doug Casey and his co-author, John Hunt. I'm seriously, I cannot recommend it highly enough. This is like a Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. It's right there with it. I mean, just an incredible story. And it's a page-turner tied in with, you can learn how to, as I was mentioning earlier, about the 9 Ps, how to invest in gold mines, learning something that could actually be useful in your life while reading a thriller of a novel. I mean, you might as well, you better read this book instead of paying your college tuition. I tell you that right now. So,
thank you, Justin.
So, Doug Casey, where can people get a copy of this book?
Well, there's 2 ways now. Unfortunately, bookstores are no longer thick underfoot. They're hard to find, and they don't have the inventory that they once did. So the best way to do it is just to go on Amazon and look up Speculator under the books, or you can go to High Ground Novels, because there are going to be 5 others, and you can buy it through the website. So that would work too, and we'd be able to notify you of when the next novel is going to be out, as Charles goes to earn back his fortune, because the government takes it all away from him. I shouldn't even say that.
Oh no.
Well, but you have to find out how and why they steal it from him. So maybe I didn't disclose too much.
Well, I can edit that out anyway if you want me to.
No, that's okay.
No problem. Oh, that's okay. All right. Okay. So when is that next book going to come out?
Less than a year, because it's 80% written.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am looking forward to that. Doug, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always fun talking with you.
Well, thanks, Justin. Anytime. I enjoyed it as well.
This is Justin Moore, signing off.